It is quite possibly one of the more anticipated events of the season here in the 2024 Wawa Cup Series, but here we are at the Circuit Gilles Villeneuve for the 18th race of the season. Only 3 races remain until the cutoff, and this race is going to play a huge factor into who makes it into the chase and who does not. These drivers who are around the bubble of that cutoff line are starting all over the place here today. But one of them will get a race win, and some of these guys may even clinch a spot into the chase. Regardless of the fact, we're here for the second road course of the season here in Montreal, Canada, north of the border for the first time ever in the Wawa Cup Series, as we're here for the Tim Hortons Canadian Grand Prix. 21 laps of action around this 2.71-mile road course in Montreal, Canada. Hello everybody, this is AG here, and welcome to Circuit Gilles Villeneuve here in Montreal, Canada. We had a lot of people last year call for this race to be held here in the Wawa Cup Series, or at least to be attempted, and you know what? We made it work. We had the Her Sprint Series here a couple of days ago, and it was a fantastic event. And we're here once again for our second road course race of the season here in the Wawa Cup Series, and it's going to be a fascinating one here today. Only one pit stop here today for these guys. If you saw that Her Sprint Series race on Wednesday, you know that they're going to be on the pit lane for a little bit longer than expected. A bit of an IMSIB stop, as we called it on Wednesday. And that'll definitely shake things up in terms of how these guys run. But this is also a very tricky racetrack, and the qualifying results will show that. Our defending champion, Drew Webb, who doesn't need a bad run right now, even though he's 33 points ahead, starts dead last here in this race. And another driver, Kirsten Bell, who's one of those drivers in the wild card, Daniel Paulus Jr. as well. They're the 2 drivers who currently hold the wild card spots. They're starting back in the field as well. But a driver who absolutely needs a good run, Angel Gutierrez, starts on the pole position. It's going to be all over the place here today. We're going to have a lot of fun for 21 laps, and we're joined alongside Echo Evans-Ross for the call of this race. And Echo, I know you're not too happy about where Kirsten is starting in this race. She's starting 37th here today. What does she need to do to work her way through the field and salvage a good run and hold on to a good spot in this wildcard race?
I would just say patience and strategy. It's going to be hard to pass because it's a road course. Obviously not impossible, and especially for where you start is going to be key, and she's still starting on the inside lane. But it is going to be very important that she's able to work her way through on strategy, and that she's able to just be patient and not get involved in any incidents that may occur on the track. This is a tough track. Got a bunch of long straightaways, tight corners. You can make up ground here.
It's going to be very interesting to see how it ends up shaking out for some of those stronger drivers starting in the back of the field. Of course, the ratings were deep into the season, and so we clearly have drivers who are faster than others and faster cars, and we'll see a lot of swapping around going on here today in that regard. Of course, that chase bubble is very tight, and once you know it, one driver who we anticipated a lot of excitement for this driver going into this race. Ludovic Charette, obviously, home race for her. She's 8 points ahead of the cutoff. Now, she starts top 10, which is great, but we'll have to see how she does in this race. I kind of thought in my head this might be the race she gets her first career win. Of course, that came at Kansas a month ago, so she already got that win in the wild card race, but 8 points ahead there at Brain Perez around that cutoff. That's the closest battle, but then we got a lot of other guys who are a good, decent way ahead of that cutoff who cannot afford to have a bad race, like Drew Webb, who starts dead last in the field, only 33 ahead of the cutoff. But the points leader starts on the outside pole, and Thomas Troxel, 91 points ahead of the cutoff, and if he leaves this race here today, 92 points or higher ahead of that cutoff, he is going to clinch his spot in the Wawa Cup Series chase. Rogel had a great season as well there. 74 team has done an excellent job with their 2 wins, 62 points ahead of the cutoff. Nicholas Sambidio, how about Nicholas Sambidio going up to the season? Second best average finishing position of the field. You know, that was a lot like what he did last year. He's 59 points ahead. Blaine Keys is 49 points ahead coming into this race. Trey Bartow, 44 points ahead. And then Matt Tuck, 34 points ahead. Drew Webb, 33 points ahead. Jack Haas, 30 points ahead. And Brian Webb, who ironically doesn't even have a top 5 this season. I just realized that before starting this race. He's got himself 23 points ahead of the cutoff. And then behind that cutoff, you see Braden Perez 8 points behind. He has really been coming on strong in these last few races. Daniel Paulus Jr. deep in the field, 17 points behind. Kirsten Bell as well starting deep in the field, 29 behind. And how about Laura Chung? She could actually have an opportunity if she gets some good runs these last 3 races. 39 points behind. She could point her way in if things go her way. But these guys are starting all over the place here today in terms of where they are in the chase grid and then where they are on the racetrack to start off. It's Angel Gutierrez, who is 28 points behind the wild card of Kirsten Bell, starting on the pole position with Daniel Paulus Jr. and Kirsten Bell starting all the way in the back of the field. So that could flip-flop if Gutierrez gets that race victory. We're going to have to see how it all goes down. Let's go ahead and get these guys to roll off here in Montreal, Canada. And of course, like I mentioned, it's Angel Gutierrez starting on the pole position. And after what happened last week at Gateway, where he crashed with his teammate, I'm sure he would definitely appreciate a top 5 run or even another race victory here today. Of course, he's alongside Thomas Troxel, though, and that 62 is going to be strong starting from the outside pole. And, you know what, our points here are looking to clinch a spot in the chase. That's what's on his mind here today. Trey Bartow and Matthew Hubert make up row number 2. Of course, both of these guys trying to make their way into the chase. Hubert a little ways back, but Bartow trying to solidify his spot in the top 10. How about the Sprint Series drivers here? Juan Romero in the 31 and Duncan Ward in the 50 making up row number 3. And how about the hometown hero? Ludovic Charette there starting in the 8th position alongside Roberto Crown Jr. Great opportunity for her if things go her way to get her 2nd win of the season. Brad Stover, Chase Buck round out the top 10. Some notable drivers, there's Matt Tuck there starting in the 6th row. Rogel Dorn there in the 7th row. Our last winner, Logan Williams. Brian Webb's there. Blaine Keys and Nicholas Samedeo midway through the field. Same with Jack Haas in the 39. And we're going to go a little bit deeper in the field. There's Braden Perez, who is 8 points behind Ludovic on that cutoff coming into this one. And then much deeper in the field, you got Kirsten Bell, Daniel Paulus Jr., and Drew Webb. And we'll have to see what they can do in this 21-lap event. Of course, we're on the road course. No pit stops here, or should I say no cautions here. We will have a cycle of pit stops. So with all that in mind, Echo, who do you think is going to get the race victory here in the Canadian Grand Prix in Montreal?
I like where Troxel's starting, but I have to go with the hometown driver, Ludovic Charette. She's been so good this season. I know she wants to do it here, and it would be an absolute fan favorite here for all the lovely fans here in Montreal, Quebec.
I'm pretty sure this corner right here. No, I think we missed it. Hairgel put a banner, which might be a little difficult to see today, unfortunately, in one of the corners. I forget which one it was, commemorating Ludovic Charette, with this being her hometown race. So he went all out with the graphics on this one, so we're excited for all of that in that regard. But Thomas Troxel, Angel Gutierrez here, going to be starting on the front row. Going to be fascinating to see what Gutierrez can do from this top position. And that first corner is going to be huge in how well this race plays out for some of these drivers, because whoever gets that initial jump and takes control of this race, of course, this being a road course, it's going to be very difficult to make passes on this race course here today. Of course, there are some corners where they can get a little loose and overshoot it. And that could also be a factor for some of these drivers here today. But you got a guy like Thomas Troxel starting on the front row. It's going to be hard to beat him. And Angel Gutierrez has to get the jump on him at the start of this race in order to control this race ahead of our points leader. Going to be a fascinating one here today.
There's a lot of really good passing zones here, too. That hairpin down the back through those chicanes, and especially turn 1. Those are going to be really good spots for these guys to make up ground.
We'll have to see if any of these guys do make up ground in that regard. Of course, the cycle of pit stops will also be a huge factor as well. Like I said, a bit of an IMSA stop here today for these guys. They're going to be on the pit lane for an extended time, and they have to be careful not to be on the pit lane too long. Well, here we go. The 18th race of the season. We're finally back on a Saturday afternoon. Angel Gutierrez is going to lead us off, and we are green flag racing north of the border here in Montreal, Canada, in the Canadian Grand Prix.
Troxel's going to get the inside here into turn 2, and he's going to take the lead. Great jump from the 62 there.
He made that look easy there on Angel Gutierrez. Matthew Hubert looking to slide in the 3rd. He's actually trying to take 2nd on Gutierrez right here, and it looks like he will do so. Oh no, Troxel's in the wall! And that's one of the corners right there that could be a bit of a trouble spot here today, and Troxel definitely has some right side damage to that race car. Everybody else got through it all right, but he clearly has some damage, and that's going to slow him down here as Gutierrez continues to fight with Hubert. He is going to take second away from the 0. Oh my goodness, you know, I was saying at the start of the race, get the race lead, take control of the event. A guy like Thomas Troxel making a mistake like that early on is a huge surprise. Huge surprise, but still a long race. He's still out there. He's still leading this race, and again he's wide. Oh my goodness, he was not ready for this one.
He's still holding on to the lead, so... But for how long? Because here comes Gutierrez.
Angel Gutierrez trying to take advantage of this right here.
This hairpin back here is going to be a real good place to try dive bombing, guys. They're going to be able to try. They can absolutely make up corner speed here.
See if Gutierrez can close in on the 62 at any point. If there's some damage on the 62 machine, that might be hurting him aerodynamically. And with these long back straightaways that we got right here, definitely could be a factor into how his race goes. This is the other crossover section. He'll be a lot cleaner that time around, and Troxel will be able to hold on and lead lap 1. Oh no! In the wall!
Oh.
Matt Tuck just took out the 31 of Juan Romero coming off the final corner, and Matt Tuck's got damage in the 54 machine from that.
And there's a big stack up a little further back. There were cars going through the dirt and everything.
Bit of a shuffle back in there as they try to avoid the 31 of Juan Romero. Oh no, and Bruno Diacomo just ran right into that 31 machine, who is still slow on the racetrack. Drew Webb in the 99 machine as well. Still did not get off to a good start. I don't think he actually has any damage from anything. He just did not get off to a good start in this race. And now you got a battle going on here. Duncan Ward trying to get around Trey Bartow. How about the Sprint Series driver right here going for 4th?
And look at Charette already. She's climbed up to 6th already. Made her move past Crown and a couple other cars. That 51, I think, might have something.
And of course,
just
now
wait to show your hand.
Well, I mean, Matt Tuck's actually still running in 11th, but you see the buckle on that hood. That I don't know if he's going to be able to continue much longer with that damage.
He's got some pretty big hood damage. I wouldn't be surprised if they came in now, or at least a little earlier than when the cycle would suggest.
Well, an eventful first couple of laps here in Montreal, and we expected this race to be quite exciting, no doubt about it. Juan Romero's still out there in the 31, and hopefully he'll get back around to the pit lane before our leaders run into him. Gutierrez trying to close in on Troxel here for this race lead. Troxel a much cleaner lap that time around, and he's finally settling in. But how about the 50 machine? You know, Appalachian Motorsports, you know they have fast cars. They went 1-2 last week at Gateway, and Matt Tuck is in fact coming down.
Yeah.
That is such a shame for that team. Matt Tuck came into this race 34 points ahead of that cutoff, and he's still going to be top 10 at the end of this race, but he's going to be a lot closer to that cut line that he would have wanted, and I think he's just out of the race.
Got a couple other cars coming in. I think that's D'Oliveira.
Yeah, Bernardo D'Oliveira, Bruno Diacomo as well, also down the pit lane.
Both of the D drivers in the pit lane.
Matthew Hubert hanging on to 4th here, or should I say 3rd, ahead of Duncan Ward in the 50 machine. Great run for Duncan, and here comes Ladovic looking for 5th on Trey Bartow.
What a dive bomb.
And that's a good place to make a move right there.
And she's going to pinch the 4 down.
A lot of grip on that outside when you exit the corner, and Ladovic's now up to the 5th position. And you know Stewart's on the radio cheering her along, because now that Matt Tuck's out of the race, you know Grand Motorsport, they want to get up front and want to get some race victories, some more race wins. They only have the 1 win on the year. That was at Kansas. Matt Tuck's winless this year, and he's not going to win here today, but Ladovic's still out there running top 5 early on in this race. Meanwhile, Troxel's pulled away here from Gutierrez to that top position, almost about a second now on that 36 machine. And Duncan Ward trying to close in on the 0, Matthew Hubert. Bartow's fallen to 6th. As we got Rogaldorn and Chase Buck battling right there. And a top 10 run right now for Roberto Crown Jr. They definitely need that, no doubt about it. The way their season has gone. Brad Stover also top 10, and you got Justin Seidel just outside the top 10 there. His teammate not too far behind.
Crown's had some terrible luck this season. This is a much needed run. Can't get too ahead of ourselves here, but I mean that 5 definitely has the pace to stay up front here.
We'll have to see, of course. Their teammate Laura Chung has had an excellent season. Laura comes in this race 14th in the point standings, and she was the pole sitter at Gateway last week and led a lot of laps and had a solid run. Actually finished third in the Coke 600 as well. So a lot of success there for Laura Chung and that Dracoan Racing Enterprises team. Well, a lot of success right now for Thomas Troxel, even though he's got that damage to the right side of his race car. He's got 1.2 seconds right now on Angel Gutierrez, trying to pull away from this 36 machine. We'll have to see how well he can manage the rest of this race. It's going to be very interesting, especially with the cycle of pit stops, if they're going to repair that damage or not. If that opens the door for Gutierrez, or maybe, Ludovic Charette looks pretty fast in that 51 machine. Maybe gain an advantage as the race goes on. I do believe that Juan Romero did finally get onto the pit lane. He's out of the race, and so is Bruno Diacomo, but Matt Tuck did get back out there. The downside for Matt, he is going to have to come down to pit lane again before the end of this event. He's not going to be able to make it from here on out.
I will say Troxel ran pretty well at the other road course he run so far. He ran pretty well at COTA, won the pole, finished top 5 in that race. He didn't have the pace to win, but he definitely was one of the fastest cars in that race.
And of course, Pacific Racing, definitely a very strong team. Of course, they won Watkins Glen last year as well with Chase Buck. So no surprise to see him run well here today with Thomas Troxel. Leads to know Chase Buck hasn't had the best of seasons, but even he's top 10 right now, running in the 8th position right there. Brad Stover just outside, or just inside the top 10 at the moment. And then it's Justin Seidel, Blaine Keys, our last winner. Logan Williams is up here. Zachary Fitzwater, Jack Haas, Andrew Miller, Tanner Parton, Ace Garcia, Nicholas Samedeo. Yeah, considering the way this race has gone, I don't think it's a particularly bad run for Samedeo in terms of the chase. Brian Webb, kind of the same thing for him. We'll see where Kirsten Bell is. You know, she's moved up a little bit here.
She did gain spots. It helped that she was able to get through that stack-up wreck. She's up into the top 30, which is definitely an improvement, 29th.
Able to avoid all the chaos as well.
Haas has also made a pretty good jump. He's up to like 15th, I think, so pretty solid starts for my drivers, but, you know.
Jack Haas definitely needs a good run as well. He's only 30 points ahead of the cutoff, and right now he currently runs in the 15th position, which not too bad, all things considered. And how about Ludovic?
Charette. Another pass.
Another position right here, this time on Duncan Ward. This 51 is fast here today. You know she would love to win her home racetrack. I know this one's been circling her calendar all year long, and you know what? She's only 8 points ahead of that cutoff as well, so she could use a great run here today. We're going to come down to the pit lane as well, and how cleanly these guys get around it. It'll be fascinating to see, though, if these guys can jump Troxel. Troxel definitely has a fast race car, but will they have to repair that damage, and will that keep him on the pit lane longer than he wants? That is going to be the huge question. Hubert trying to close in on Gutierrez for second, as Charette is now up to the 4th position. You got Trey Bartow here in 6th, Roberto Cragino, Chase Buck, Rogel-Dorn, and now Justin Seidel up inside the top 10. You know, this is another guy who needs a good run. Justin's not had a good season. 25th in points, and especially in comparison to his teammate Blaine Keys. Blaine Keys, of course, 2-time winner this season. Sits there 4th in points. 8 top 5 for Blaine Keys, by the way, as well. More top 5s than anybody else this season. Justin doesn't even have a top 5 yet this season, so that's a bit of a tough one there. But Justin trying to get inside that top 10. He actually just took that 10th position away from Brad Stover. You can see that cap now. Troxel's got that clean air. He's 2 seconds ahead of Gutierrez now, trying to pull away from this field and get some advantage to maybe pull away and win this race.
Well, and also if he pulls away this much, that can absolutely help him if they do have to fix that damage. If they have to pull that sheet metal out a little bit. The bigger lead he has, that means, you know, the more time he can afford to lose if he has to fix damage on that pit stop.
The longer that he can stay out and pull away from Gutierrez, the better it's going to be for that 62 team. But we'll just have to see if that 51 can get around Hubert and Gutierrez, because pretty obvious that they're getting held up by this 36 right now. I mean, hey, all due respect to Gutierrez, he's doing an excellent job trying to manage a good run, trying to get to Kirsten Bell and Daniel Paulus Jr. in that wildcard race. And he wants Troxel to win this race if he doesn't, because Troxel ain't going to be in that wildcard race. We know that. But Gutierrez would love to close in on his fellow competitors as Charette overshot the corner, and Duncan Ward's going to go back around. I'm sure she did not want that to happen right there. Bartow also trying to close in as well.
Not a great mistake to make, especially when it's hard to pass here.
He's still in the 5th position right there for Grattan Autosport. Gutierrez trying to hold his line to keep this 0 Matthew Hubert behind him, but they are losing time. The Troxel each and every lap. They're stuck behind that 36 machine. Mainly single file for the majority of this field right now. They have calmed it down since the beginning. Obviously, the big moment right there was Matt Tuck essentially getting taken out by Juan Romero there, or vice versa. Regardless of the fact, Matt Tuck, he still has to come back down the pit lane again for fuel and tires, and he is almost a whole minute behind the rest of the field, or behind our race leader, Thomas Troxel. So his day is essentially shot unless something really crazy happens. And that's the downside about the road courses. Having no cautions, there's really no way to rebound if you wreck or have an issue, and you have to be on pace, and you have to be on it the entire race, and that's what makes it so difficult to win one of these road course races. I mean, just ask Travis Crampton and Dakota. Dominated that race as Duncan Ward overshot there, and Ladovic's going to have a shot to get back around the 50. She's got to be careful not to dump this 50 machine and have the same thing that happened to Matt Tuck happen to her, as Matthew Hubert makes a move on Gutierrez for 2nd, and the 36 is going to lose yet another position. Great run for Hubert here in this one. And Ladovic not going to be able to get the advantage on the 50 machine.
At least not yet. We'll see if she could do the same thing that Ward did to get by her. Just kind of pressure Ward into a mistake here, and hope he goes wide. Not going to happen, though.
Not going to do it that time. You see this line of cars is stuck behind 2nd place as Thomas Troxel continues to pull away in this field, and I think the silver lining for the rest of the field is the damage that he has, but even then, they may not even choose to repair it. They may just do a normal stop and have him go out there and win this race by 10 seconds. You know, it's funny. His one win all season has come at Talladega, of all places. Got the best average finishing position, more points than anybody else. He's been the points leader majority of the season. But his one win comes at the one place that literally anybody can win. Well, this would definitely be a huge win for this team, trying to get the regular season championship for a 2nd year in a row. And, Troxel will love to get as many bonus points as he possibly can. As Duncan Ward's down, and so is Justin Zidell. Now, this could be strategy as well. They could come down a little bit earlier and make it from here to the end of the race, so we'll have to see if that works out for Zidell and Duncan Ward, respectively. But you're going to see right here, it'll be on the pit lane for quite some time. It's going to be interesting to see how that ends up shaking out the running order. So Surratt going to move back up to 4th, and then Trey Bartow now in the top 5 as Duncan Ward has come down the pit lane.
It'll be curious to see how fresh tires are going to affect this too, because if this is a road course, tire wear is going to be a big thing here. But at the same time,
Rogel Dorn, that's the trouble spot right there for these guys, and Rogel Dorn, that's going to hurt his run in this race. Chase Buck on Roberto Crown Jr. I think right there is one of the best passing zones. Yeah,
entry of, I don't remember the corner name, but it's that chicane, that 2nd chicane down the back here. That's going to be the best spot to pass all race here. You might see some moves into like 1 or the hairpin, but the best place you're going to be able to get by a guy is down that 2nd chicane.
Dovicek closing in here on Angel Gutierrez. That is for the 3rd position.
Yeah, and I'd be curious about Charette here, because now that the 50's not in her way, she can try and make moves on these cars ahead and see if she can jump the 50 just by basically doing an overcut. She's clearly fast, just has to be smart about it.
Jesse Turner, Philip Torres also came down the pit lane that time around as well. Kirsten Bell here in the 93 really hasn't moved up any further. Still 28th right there. Daniel Paul Sr. still deep in the field. Drew Webb, when we went to Road America last year, Drew Webb struggled, and that was the 18th race of the season last year. Of course, he'll be going to Road America later on in July, but not a good run for Drew Webb, and I don't think he was even caught up in anything. He's just struggled that much here around this race course as Troxel has come down the pit lane in the 62 machine a little early, so this is going to be an interesting strategy on this team. Now, how long are they going to be on the pit lane? Rogel Dorn's also down. Ace Garcia, Jack Haas is down. They don't want to lose much time. Want to get those tires and try to gain an advantage on everybody else. So Matthew Hubert going to lead a lap right there. And of course, an extended pit stop for these guys, just like we saw in the Hearst Sprint Series, about a 30-second time penalty essentially. afterwards, because the way the track is coded, you get a speeding penalty, but everybody gets it, so everyone's still on equal footing. We'll have to see how that ends up working out for Troxel in regards to the guys who stayed out right here. It's going to be fascinating to see how it all ends up shaking out. Mardi Gras off the racetrack there.
Pretty Mardi Gras.
That was an interesting run for him. Ladovic trying to fend off Trey Barger right now as Matthew Hubert leads here in Montreal.
Yeah, I wonder if Hubert's trying this overcut or if Hubert's just hoping that they stay out long like this, that he could maybe jump Troxel in terms of the strategy. Since they had to pull that fender out on the 62, I would be curious about where he ends up lining up.
Rogel Dorn jumped him. Rogel Dorn jumped him, which definitely means that they had a slower stop.
Oh, yeah.
This is going to play in the favor of Hubert and Charette and all these guys who are still staying out right now, because there's an extended stop for those guys, and they're still staying out right here, so they're going to try to stretch it. I think Brian Webb's going to be coming down back in there, 13 machine, so we'll see what kind of advantage he ends up getting. But strategies all over the place here today. Matthew Hubert trying to get this race victory. Charette's trying to get around Gutierrez, so she has a shot at this race victory because she knows if she can get around both these guys ahead of her, she could get the race win here today, especially with that slower stop from Thomas Troxel. It's going to be interesting to see.
The other thing I'd be curious about is how is the tire wear going to factor into it, because these guys pitted earlier. They're going to have fresh tires. If the tire wear has anything to say about this, they could jump these guys in terms of how fresh their tires are. Rogel Dorn could sneak another one. I mean, we saw that at Coda.
This could be Rogel Dorn's third win of the season. Of course, there's the top two guys in points right there who are on that strategy. That 74 is just checked out from Troxel as well.
Yeah, Troxel has not had a very great outlap here.
And also, too, I mean, I still see some damage on the right side of that car, so that's also affecting him. Duncan Ward right behind him also had damage. I think that really affected these guys. Brian Webb, you see Brian Webb in the 13 coming out now. He was well behind these guys before any of the cycles began, and he's going to gain a decent amount of time. He's actually going to get ahead of Troxel right here, which is huge for Brian, trying to get as much as he can in terms of this title. We'll see if the rest of our leaders come down this time around. Matthew Hubert trying to pull away from Gutierrez at the moment. Next time by, not this time by, actually, yeah, we're pretty much halfway through. Not quite yet, though. Hubert is still going to stay out right here. He's going to wait to pass halfway. I think a lot of these guys are just going to go ahead and make sure they can make it to the end. I don't think fuel is going to be an issue for guys like Troxel and those guys, but just something to keep in mind. Obviously, we saw the Real Life Cup race at Gateway last week. Ryan Blaney thought he had enough fuel, and he didn't. Either that or Tim Cindric sabotaged him so his son could win. I don't know, but regardless of the fact, I'm not anticipating any shenanigans in terms of the fuel mileage in this race, but then again, who knows? The way the season's gone so far, and you've been the benefit of one of those strange races there at your team, anything's possible. It's going to be fascinating to see if that ends up being the case. But Rogel Dorn is in the seat right now to take the advantage of those guys who have already come down. He's clear out and ahead of everybody else here right now. It's going to be interesting to see where he ends up slotting in relation to the rest of our leaders. But meanwhile, Blaine Keys trying to make a move here. Blaine also trying to get a bit of a cushion going into the chase. You know, he missed the chase last year. Ironically enough, he won twice. He won Texas and the Coke 600, still missed the chase while driving for that car he just passed. And this season looks a lot better for him in terms of making it into the chase, and another solid run here today would definitely solidify his chances at going for a Wawa Cup Series championship there, as Ladovic got around Gutierrez.
Gutierrez and Buck's going to try to do the same. I think Gutierrez might have slipped up in one of these corners.
Definitely looks to be the case.
Falling back. Chase Buck. Talk about him. He's gained quite a few spots. He passed Barto. He's trying to pass Gutierrez now. Chase Buck's got a real strong car, I think.
Chase Buck's doing a great job here for Pacific Racing. Of course, Pacific Racing, a solid team, obviously, with their driver, Thomas Troxel.
It's been kind of a tough year for Buck.
Right here. This is going to be very interesting to see what they end up doing here. Logan Williams is down the pit lane. I would imagine next time by, these guys are going to be coming down right here. I don't know how much of an advantage they're going to be getting as well staying out this late. It's going to be fascinating to see how it ends up shaking out for him. But Chase Buck's going to make the move on Gutierrez. You know, Gutierrez definitely needs a good run in this race, no doubt about it. Trying to hang on to everything he can in this one. Blaine Keys, by the way, is closed in on these guys as well. That 41's really quick here today. Clearly, as he drove right away there from Berta Crown Jr.
Yeah. Chase Buck needs a good run. He's like 29th in points coming in, which is in sharp contrast to Troxel, who's been leading the points and could clinch a spot in the chase today.
One of the biggest differences, I think, between teammates this season, obviously Troxel's been lights out all year, even though he really hasn't qualified well in certain instances. He has still had an excellent season. Now, this race probably isn't going to go his way after leading majority of the opening stint. But Rogel Dorn is still very much in contention to win this race here today after that pit stop, and he has a pretty significant lead on these guys. But I think next time by, we're going to see our race leaders come down. Matthew Huber, Ledovic's right there as well. This 51 has a great opportunity at jumping the 0 and then jumping the 74, and that could very well end up being the case. And Ledovic could definitely use a good points day, considering he's only 8 points ahead of Braden Perez in that cutoff. Speaking of which, where is Braden Perez? I haven't seen him all race. Currently running 14th. Of course, that's with all these guys in their cycles and everything. But Perez is going to try to hold on and maybe close in on the 51, but I don't think that's going to happen.
Yeah, they're all come to pit road.
Not everyone coming down this time around. Trey Bartow is going to lead a lap and get a bonus point. So will Blaine Keys. So we'll have to see how well it shakes out for Hubert and these guys who were the dominant drivers.
Yeah, this will be really interesting where these guys cycle out compared to the 74, the 62, etc.
Chris Rogel's definitely the mark in terms of how well...
Some of these guys are only taking 2 tires.
I don't think the tire wear is actually that significant here today. I'm pretty sure these guys...
I think that
we're not at North Wilkesboro where you got a 4-second fall off. Little different for these guys. We're going to have to see who gets out first here, and this is what I was saying. They stay on the pit lane for a while. How long will they stay on? Rogel Lawrence coming around here in that 74 machine. We're going to have to see where he slots in regards to everybody else right here. Here they come. Matthew Hubert going to get off ahead of Ledovic Charette and Chase Buck. Rogel Dorn is coming fast, but he's got to slow down for this corner right here as these guys can avoid that corner. And Matthew Hubert, Ledovic Charette, Chase Buck are all going to jump Rogel Dorn now. The 74 will have the warm tires, and he might be able to close in a little bit, but he's still going to be a little ways behind. Chase Buck's going to get around Ledovic Charette right there for the second position, and now... he's trying to close in on Hubert for the race lead, or what will be the race lead once the rest of these drivers finally come down for their stop.
What a move by Buck to get around Charette on the outside there.
Oh, and Buck got around Hubert.
And
you saw that in the corner of your screen. And how about the Pacific Racing driver of Chase Buck trying to get his 4th career win in the Wawa Cup Series. He's driving away from that 0 machine. Ledovic's also going to get around Hubert. That 0 machine, a little bit off the pace here, off the cycle. Ledovic's going to try to get that 0.
Hubert looks like he's kind of just not been able to get up to pace here.
Going to be interesting to see if Charette can close in on Hubert and close up to that 32. But Chase Buck, how about the Pacific Racing driver who's had such a miserable season up to this point, looking to maybe steal one here today in Montreal, Canada for Pacific Racing. We'll have to see what these guys do. Trey Bartow, Blaine Keys, they were some of the first ones off. We'll have to see how close they are. Rogel Dorn's getting around Ledovic Charette right here.
I think a win would fix everything for Buck.
It definitely would.
Regardless of what happens. Regardless of what happens the rest of the year, as long as you can get that win.
That's tight.
Dorn, wow.
He's going to make it. He's going to make it work. Oh, boy. This is going to be close, though. Trey Bartow and Blaine Keys looking to beat the 32 off. And, my goodness, Blaine's going to go to the inside of Bartow for the race lead here as Chase Buck is closing in. These two have to be careful not to let that 32 get to them. This right here is for the race lead. And Blaine Keys going to be on the outside of this corner. Always a tough one. He's got it. And he's going to clear Bartow for the top position.
Yeah, but how long are they going to be able to stay out in front of the 32? That 32 looks really fast.
Will Chase make a move on Bartow right here? He will not. Bartow's going to be able to hold on to that position. And how about these drivers staying out later? That looks to be the strategy that worked out. At least for Blaine Keys right now. He's trying to pull away. Chase Buck getting around Trey Bartow there for what will be second place. Yeah, this is for second place. They have all cycled through now. And Blaine Keys is taking the race lead here in the Tim Hortons Canadian Grand Prix. The next time by, it's going to be 7 laps to go. A long ways left in this race for Chase Buck to close in on Blaine before this one closes out.
Yeah, but I haven't seen anybody pass someone on the straightaway like the 32 was able to that time on the 4 of Trey Bartow. Chase Buck's got to be one to watch here. He might have just what it takes to run down the 41 and pass him.
Of course, catching him is one thing, passing him is another. So we'll have to see if Chase Buck can, in fact, pass this 41 to Blaine Keys. Trey Bartow is 3rd, Rogel Dorn is 4th, Matthew Hubert, Ludovic Charette. Got Andrew Miller, another solid run for the 97 team. Brad Stover, Angel Gutierrez, Zachary Fitzwater as well. And Troxel really falling back there. All the way back behind Brian Webb, Logan Williams.
Hey, Kirsten Bell has done a great job moving up to the field, up to 18th.
That's what she needs in terms of the wild card race.
Limiting the ground that Gutierrez is going to gain, especially considering that they were split by about 20-some points. If they finish where they started, that would have swung right to Gutierrez. Instead, it's only going to be about a 10-point swing, because Gutierrez is back in 8th.
This battle right here, I think Chase Buck just overshot the corner, though. And Blanky's trying to hold on. That 32, though, is coming fast. But if there's any driver that can keep that 32 behind, it's Blaine Keys. We know how good he's been all season, especially on the intermediate tracks. Of course, 2 wins on the year for Blaine Keys. Getting the race win at Texas. And then moving on to win at Auto Club about 3 weeks ago. Racing Motorsports definitely has their driver, and Blaine Keys definitely wants to get into the chase this year after he missed it a year ago. A race win here would pretty much lock his spot into the chase, and he would also be the first driver to win 3 races this season as well. And I think the first driver to win 3 races last year, I think, may have been Drew Webb, if I'm not mistaken. I could be wrong about that, but if I'm right about that, we all know what Drew Webb did last year. And watch out for Blaine Keys, especially if he can get this win here today, but still a long ways left to go. We're coming to 6 laps to go here in Montreal. A long ways left around this racetrack, and a lot can happen between now and the finish. And like I said, we remember Coda and how that ended up shaking out for Travis Crampton near the end. And I'm sure all these guys are thinking about that.
Rogel Dorn is up to 3rd. Dorn got past Bartow and Hubert, so that's 74. If you're looking at someone who we can think will steal one, I mean, Rogel Dorn has always kind of been in that camp of just being able to show up when the time is right.
Got around Trey Bartow right there. And that 74 is definitely going to close up, I think, on these top 2, especially if Keys holds this 32 behind. Oh boy, you gotta be careful.
I don't know how long he's going to be able to hold the 32 behind. Buck is there.
Blaine Keys is going to do all he can to keep this 32 behind him, but Chase Buck is right there on the back bumper. And it is going to be tight all the way to the finish if this 41 can, in fact, keep the 32 behind him.
Was able to keep him behind in the best passing zone. So that's another point to Keys there for being able to do that, but it's going to be a tall order to maintain this.
Oh boy, he overshot it, and here comes Chase Buck for the race lead. But will Blaine be able to hold the inside going into the hairpin? No, he won't, and the 32 takes it away. How about Chase Buck here in Montreal?
Smart move to just drop in behind.
This is definitely, you know, in regards to how Chase Buck has run this season, this would be a huge, huge upset. I know he had the year he had last year, very solid year there for Pacific Racing a year ago, but what a huge upset this would be if Chase Buck can, in fact, hold on to this race victory. Blanky's going to try to close back in, though.
Lady Luck just has not agreed with Chase Buck this season, but he can hang on for a few more laps. You still need 5 solid laps here, but if he can hang on for just a few more laps, I mean, this would be a really, really good win. It would be the shot in the arm that this team absolutely needs. I don't think they're going to make the chase. They're not going to be particularly close to that, but it is absolutely going to help them with some momentum, especially during the chase.
And I'm sure they're learning stuff for Thomas Troxel as well there at Pacific Racing with how well Chase Buck is running this race. You know, it's kind of interesting that Troxel's been the one that's had the struggles in this race, and we say that he's running 14th, which is still a great run regardless. But still, considering he dominated the first part of that race, that is not necessarily where you want to be. Oh, Logan's going to hit the outside wall. And how about Kirsten Bell? You know, she's rebounded very well up to 16th in that 93 machine. That's absolutely what she needed.
Ahead of her own teammate, Jack Haas, who's back in about 21st.
And Laura Chung in the outside wall hard. Not a good day for Daniel Paulus Jr., however. 33rd right now for Paulus, and that's not good in regards to Kirsten. Kirsten will probably jump Paulus the way they're running right now. Gutierrez is 8th, which is also going to be huge for Gutierrez in his fight to get to that 24 machine in the wildcard race.
I mean, I'd say for Paulus, what he's got to be worried about, obviously he came in about 40 points ahead of Gutierrez, but I think in the coming weeks, they've got more road courses coming up, he's got to be worried about potentially being jumped by Gutierrez.
The last 2 races before the cutoff are Iowa and New Hampshire, so both short track chassis types, so you have to be very good in terms of qualifying and getting a good starting position, and you have to have a very good car. And I think that is what Chase Buck can attribute this strong run to, is a very good car. They are Pacific Racing.
Hey,
you look at who else he's racing with. Blaine Keys, Rogel Dorn, Ladovich Charette, Trey Bartow, all 4 of those guys will more than likely make the chase. Definitely a huge upset, but that car is not necessarily the surprise. Pacific Racing, definitely one of the best teams here in the Wawa Cup Series. Brendan Wilmington knows what he's doing. Chase Buck looking to bring this one home for his 4th career win in the Wawa Cup Series here today. But Blaine Keys is going to try to hold on to it, but he is losing ground, and Rogel Dorn's also closing in. Ladovich's taken 4th away from Bartow, and the Matthew Hubert there.
Dorn's been closing, but he just hasn't closed quick enough. I think Dorn is going to need some intervention from... Basically, needs to get lucky here. Which, for Rogel Dorn, isn't out of the realm of possibility. But it would be a very tall... Very much be wishful thinking for the 74. Still a great run for that team, though.
You had to thank Coda. He was, 10 seconds behind Travis Crampton in that race? And Crampton blew a tire, so...
Not impossible.
He's got to have 2 drivers blow a tire. You know, he would want... What he would want to happen is Blaine Keys and Chase Buck to take each other out. That's the more likely solution. And you know what? Blaine closed in a little bit there. You got to think. On the long run, the tires are going to be a little bit better on that 41 machine. And I know the tire wear isn't too significant here today, but that 41 is going to have fresher rubber later on in this run in comparison to Chase Buck.
I honestly wonder if Keys let the 32 by to let him wear his stuff down, and then he's just going to slowly reel him in and try and pass him back again.
We'll have to see if that ends up being the case. He did close in a little bit that time around, so 3 to go here in Montreal. Blanky's trying to hone down this 32 for the race lead. Rogel Dorn 3.4 seconds behind, so he is also slowly reeling them in.
He really gained that lap.
Oh boy, I almost thought Chase was going to overshoot the corner right there. You know, that's also something that can happen, and in regards to the tire wear, that's a place where if you don't have the grip through that corner, you could overshoot it if you're not careful, and Chase Buck has to be careful not to let that 41 get around him.
Yeah, I think Buck's a little better in these technical sections. I think Buck's just a little bit better at the cornering, but Keys has been able to reel him down on the straightaways. I think Keys is a little more engine pace.
Blaine Keys is definitely a solid driver. I think he's going to intimidate this 32 here as this race goes on, because he has not fallen back from the back bumper of Chase Buck during this run. And we're just going to have to see if this 41 machine has enough to maybe get back around the 32 or maybe pressure Chase Buck into a mistake to take the race lead away. We'll have to see if that ends up being the case. Ladovich trying to pull away from Trey Bartow. Andrew Miller up to 7th. How about Avery Alford in the top 10 with Zachary Fitzwater rounding out the top 10 right now? Definitely a lot of surprises in terms of who runs up front. That's what happens at these road course races, though. We definitely get a mixed bag of who's running well and who's not. Obviously, we got guys like Blaine Keys, Rogodor, and Ludovic Charette, Trey Bartu who have all won races this season. And then also, you got Chase Buck leading this field, who, like you said, Echo, sitting 29th in points. Only 2 top 10s on the season, 1 top 5. He's got 2 laps to go for his first win of the season, and his 4th of his career. Of course, his last win came at a road course at Watkins Glen. This race a lot different, a lot more different than that race at Watkins Glen. A flat road course here, a lot more technical. He's going to try to hold off this 41 to get this race victory here in this Tim Hortons Canadian Grand Prix. He's got to be careful through this corner.
If you're Keys here, what you want to do, don't run into the 32 if he makes a mistake, because easily if you get too close to him and he makes a mistake right in front of you, he comes bowling right across the track and can take you with him. And that's not something that either of them want.
Blanky's going to have to do all he can to at least keep the pace of Chase Buck here, because if Chase doesn't make another mistake, or make any mistake for that matter, he's going to win this race. So Blaine's got to be careful not to get too far behind where he gives Chase Buck a bit of a cushion to make a mistake.
And Dorn has stopped gaining ground, so I think Buck might have just kind of let off for a couple laps to save tires and stuff before he went for his final push for the win here.
They're coming to the white
it's
flag.
Not impossible.
Next time around here, Blaine Keys is trying to
close
close in. He's going to have one more lap to do it, but he definitely lost some ground that lap there. We'll have to see if he gains anything on this front stretch here. I will say, this has been a very fascinating race here. Very glad we put this track on the schedule, as it looks like Thomas Troxel trying to gain some positions back there, and same with Kirsten Bell. Trying to get around Duncan Ward right there. Brady Mardi Gras as well, trying to get around the 50. I think he already made that move, and here we go. White flag in the air here in the Tim Hortons Canadian Grand Prix for Chase Buck and Pacific Racing. That time around, it was 1.17 seconds, so a very good lap there for Chase Buck, and it's going to take a massive mistake for him to lose this race at this point. Because that 41 of Blaine Keys, it's a little too far behind to really make anything work naturally on this last lap.
Chase Buck's just doing all he can. I think Keys is really going to be trying to pressure him here. But Buck just needs to run a clean, no-mistake lap here.
How about this for Chase Buck in Pacific Racing? Been a very tough season for this team. Obviously, by this point last year, they had 2 wins on the year. They were very much well into the chase. This year, I don't think that's going to happen for them. But you know what? This race win's going to feel good for them. And feel good for Brendan Wilmington's team. It's going to be the 2nd win of the season for Pacific Racing, assuming he gets around cleanly, of course. It ain't over till it's over.
The last particular trouble spot, he'll get through it cleanly. And, yeah, Keys is not really closing.
Regardless of the fact, it's going to be a good run for Blaine Keys. It's going to be a good run for Rogaldorn, Ludovic Charette. That's what they needed in terms of the chase. Same with Trey Bartow. Same with Angel Gutierrez trying to finesse his way into the wild card.
Yeah, most of these guys that needed good runs were able to get them.
Chase Buck in the 32. Of course, his chase hopes are pretty much over at this point with how deep he is in the standings. But regardless of the fact, I know he would absolutely welcome this win here today. 2 more corners left for the driver, the number 32. And it's going to be his 4th career win in the Wawa Cup Series. And Chase Buck is going to get it north of the border here in the Tim Hortons Canadian Grand Prix. How about that upset win for Chase Buck in Pacific Racing?
Great drive, great car, but you know, a great car can only take you so far. The driver is what really matters. Chase Buck did a great job in this race, being able to charge up to the field and take home the win.
Blaine Keys will finish 2nd. Rogaldorn will finish in 3rd. Ludovic Charette, you know, she's got to be very happy about that strong run at her home racetrack here. 4th place, kept it clean. Matthew Huber kept it clean as well for 5th, and then Bartow, Miller, Gutierrez, Alford, and Brady Mardi Gras getting the 10th position at the end of all that right there. Troxel will finish 13th, and Kirsten Bell's going to finish 15th after all that, for starting as deep as she did, which is great. Brain Perez in the 23 finishes 16th here today. But Ladovic finished ahead of him, and that's going to make things interesting. Brian Webb in the 13 finished 19th. Sam Badillo finished 20th. I don't think we're really going to see much of a change in who's in the top 10 and who's not. I think that's generally going to stay the same, but you guys will see the points here in just a moment. What a fascinating race here in Montreal. Definitely a good one, and hey, a surprise winner, no doubt about it, in Chase Buck getting it done here. Of course, he got the win at Watkins Glen at the end of last year, and it's not been a good season for that team, but he gets it done ahead of Blaine Keys there. But what a fun race here in Montreal. And you know what? We only got 2 races left until the Chase cutoff. How do you think it's going to play out at Iowa and New Hampshire? Because you know what? Those are 2 very tough places. It's going to be fascinating to see how it ends up shaking out, especially considering that we're starting to see a bit of a gap pull away around that cutoff point.
Well, first of all, I have to say, I love this race. Lots of strategy. I love strategy races. I also think Ladovic did a great job. She had a very respectable run. Obviously not a win, but hey, 4th place at your home track, that's still really good. For the next couple races, Iowa and New Hampshire. Iowa is one of those fast short tracks where it kind of races like a speedway more than anything else. You're probably going to see those speedway guys be good there. And I would say for New Hampshire, it's probably going to be something like this. It's kind of hard to pass there. Not impossible. Definitely a lot easier than a lot of others. But these last 2 races are really going to be all on the drivers. Mostly the drivers, pretty much. You gotta be a good driver to get around those 2 places. Iowa, New Hampshire especially.
It'll be fascinating to see how it ends up shaking out. Of course, next Friday night, back on Friday night for the Iowa Corn 350. By the way, I came up with that name before they announced that being the name of the real-life Iowa Cup race, so I had it first. But we're excited for that one at the Iowa Speedway. But hey, how about this one? And you know, the big moment really was Matt Tuck and Juan Romero getting into it on the first lap of the race. Only 3 retirees in this one. Nice, clean race, strategic race. Just a brilliant race all around. Maybe not for Matt Tuck and those guys who wrecked out, but going to be fascinating to see how that affects the chase grid, because Matt Tuck's going to be the one who drops back. Drew Webb as well also had a struggle in this race. He finished 31st, so those 2 guys, not really a good day for him, but going to be fascinating. We're going to see those points in just a moment.
Well, remember Tuck as well. He kept going after that, so he must have blown up later on in the race.
Mm-hmm. Damage must have been a little too much for that 54. Tough break there for Matt Tuck. It's not been quite the season he had last year, but if you can make it into the chase, you can reset from there. Hey, 3 weeks from now, we'll be in Nashville for that first race of the chase. So we got 2 more races left until that chase cutoff. Iowa next Friday night, New Hampshire 2 weeks from now. It's going to be fascinating to see who gets it done. And you know what? I think these guys can win these next races, especially after what we saw here today. How about Chase Buck getting it done here in Montreal on strategy, and actually not even really on strategy, just on pace alone. Went out there, passed Blaine Keys, and got the job done. And he's going to get Brendan Wilmington his 2nd win of the season there for Pacific Racing. Thank you guys so much for watching here for the Tim Hortons Canadian Grand Prix. Huge thanks to Echo Evans Ross for joining me here for today's event. And we'll see you guys next week from the Iowa Speedway and the Iowa Corn 350. Gonna be a fun one there on a Friday night, the Iowa Speedway. First time the Wawa Cup Series has officially been there. Gonna be a fun one there on the short track. Thank you guys so much for watching once again. Here are the point standings for the Wawa Cup Series after 18 races. And once again, congratulations to Chase Buck for getting the win here in the Canadian Grand Prix. I will see you guys later.